I like to just build up teams, build up a platform, build up a business. I try to get myself involved to learn where there is an issue, how I can help manage to make it successful and where everybody sort of wins within the process. There's something about a woman's intuition that a man just doesn't have. I'm very integrated to my family. Everything that I do starts with, what does my kid's calendar look like first?
We are here today. We are joined by Michelle Landon. She is the Vice President of Global Real Estate and Workplace for OMERS and Oxford Properties. This is a global portfolio. Let me just say that again, global, and she's the Global VP. It is an honor and privilege to be here. This is an incredible portfolio. They've got amazing properties throughout the globe in some of the most prestigious places on the planet, not just New York, but Singapore and London. And Michelle will tell you more about the portfolio, but she oversees a lot of the aspects of that portfolio. And we are here today to sit down and speak with her more about her journey to becoming this executive level in this industry, commercial real estate primarily, which is extremely male dominated. And, it is changing, is getting better. But the more you look up and the higher up you go, the more it becomes a little one-dimensional. And so we're here to really sit down with some of the women like you, Michelle, that have really transcended and made it through and broke through and try to learn a lot more about how you did it and what others can do to try to learn from your journey and how we can apply it into our journey as well. So thank you so much for joining us. Thank you so much for agreeing to be here and let us just dig in to your delicious brain and your experience.
Thank you, Alecia. Thank you. And I hope I do you proud and the rest proud, whoever's watching. They feel good about what we give today as some energy. So I'm happy to
I have no doubt. I mean, I absolutely adore talking with you. Everything I learned from you is amazing. I believe you're a mother of two kids. Two.
I love three, but two. We're out there.
The beautiful artwork we see in the background. I mean, absolutely amazing. Yeah. And of course, you look amazing. For everybody who's watching, she always looks this good. Okay, if you're wondering if she just got off of a tropical island, the answer is yes. Yes, she did.
Probably.
So, tell me a little bit more. Let's dig in for everybody who is tuning in, who's listening. Tell me more about what you do in your role at Oxford/OMERS.
Sure. So I've had the great pleasure of actually starting off my career with Oxford in terms of after JLL and a couple of other stints, but more on the landlord side. I started my career at Oxford. I was running their New York portfolio for property management. We started up the business together. So I see myself a little bit as an entrepreneur. I like to just build up teams, build up a platform, build up a business. And so I was given that opportunity back in, 2014. So this is actually my 10-year mark. But the great thing about that is a couple of years ago, maybe like 2 years ago, I put together a strategy plan to help run the corporate side of our business. I sort of wanted to change. I had already done a lot of great things with the Oxford Group. We built out 550 Washington for Google. It was like a lot of fun adventures during the road. And on that journey, I said to myself, you know what, would love to see if I could structure something a little differently to do some global work. And I found an opportunity to work on the OMERS side, which is our parent company. And so that's what I do today. So it's a little bit having a bit of a taste of, facilities management as well as property management. So it gives me a really great angle in terms of understanding the landlord and what's important to a landlord, now what's important to an occupier tenant. So It's a really broadened perspective on that initiative. And that's what I do today. I actually work now more on the tenancy side for all of our global corporate offices, running their construction, leasing, just strategy on what we do on sustainability. And so I'm having a lot of fun doing it today.
Did you know that only 11% of C-suite across our nation are women? If you want to see change, subscribe to the podcast, comment below, and get involved. Donate now at Allan-Vanderbilt.org. First link in the description below.
It's really cool. It sounds like you're doing everything.
We do. Like all moms, we do everything.
To
Like
sum it up,
we do everything.
I do everything, which is really cool. I also like the part where you talked about how you presented something. And maybe we'll discuss that a little bit later on, but I thought that was a really cool aspect where you wanted something, you saw something, and you thought, I'm going to try to present this idea to them. That's very cool.
Absolutely.
So why don't you tell me, how did you get into property management or into commercial, I should say? What does that look like? How'd you end up in this strange little world?
I'm gonna go back, way back, maybe like my youthful days last year. No, just kidding. Way back in the day, I got familiarized with property management through a cousin of mine that was working as as an office manager at Tishman Speyer. She was actually at 520 Madison, and I was in college or like just starting off in college. And she's like, you know what? During one summer, can you just come and help me out? We're missing a office coordinator, and I need a receptionist.
Yeah.
And so that was really probably the first time I will say that I realized that there were people that actually manage buildings for tenants. You saw the buildings, you see that they're there, but you didn't actually realize that there's a whole business behind it. And so that was my first, I would say, small little stint of a taste of something. And I remember them always asking me to come back during the summers to just like help them out. And so that was my very first taste. And then when I was in college, I actually had to come back home. I could no longer afford going to Boston College because I was there. So I said, you know what, I'm going to come back. I started working, and through that same connection, I became an administrative assistant. So I was administrative assisting during the day, working with Tishman Speyer, and then going to school at night so I could finish.
Wow.
So when I did that's really where I learned a lot of just about all of my knowledge. So I started off as an admin, I would say, in the world. And, thank goodness I was just really good at absorbing everything that came across my desk. I asked a lot of questions. I tried to learn and listen on what was happening in the meetings that I was invited to, or learning about why there were certain meetings that were happening. And so that just honestly propelled the ability for me to then have an opportunity with people who, thought I was a great learner and was just always thriving to want to be a part of something. So I got to move up the ranks. Then I got my opportunity through a vendor one day that said, hey, look, you know what? I think you could probably do this work as on a manager side. So I had an opportunity with Tritech Properties at the time, and that's how I met that vendor. And then I got to meet other people along the way, and then I got my first stop to do a manager's position with JLL. So It was fantastic. It was great. And that cutting your teeth in it, where you're, I'm walking around my radio, talking to the engineers, talking to the cleaning company. It was just such a great breadth of range of individuals to really just have to talk to, right? You have to talk to, listen, problem solve, thinking about the finance, thinking about the leasing. And so, I think the main thing I loved about this job and why I stayed in it was just because there was a million different things you could do within the role. So it never really left you bored at all. And you constantly had the capability of making decisions that could improve a process or improve a relationship, bring value to an organization, bring return on investment. And so it's just been a fabulous way of getting into it. So I started from the very bottom, worked my way up to the top. And so that's been my journey. And I wouldn't even call this the top. I'm hoping there's still many, many more tops to go. As I fly to the heavens, I hope, my wings still take me there, but I'm having a great time doing it.
That's awesome. I mean, that it is really cool to see someone who really started literally from ground up. But one of the unsung beauties about being a property manager, because you're right, when you're in college, nobody knows it's a career. The young people have no idea this is a thing. And most people who have been in the industry, it's accidental. It just kind of something organically happened, and then they're like, oh, this is a job, this is a career, and hopefully we can kind of put it a little bit more on on the front lines for younger people that this is a real trajectory for a life and for a career. But exactly what you said, where every single day is different. It does feel a little entrepreneurial in the fact that you're doing all of these different things. And so it's never a boring job. It's a hard job, but it's never a boring job, which I think for a lot of people, is what really they love about the job and about this industry. So I love that you touched on all of those things.
That's great. Thank you.
So why don't you tell me about the journey? Give me your 30-second pitch on the journey of you start as an admin, you get this role as a property manager in JLL. How did you get from here to here in 30 seconds? No pressure.
30 seconds.
You don't really need 30 seconds.
Well,
take as much
you know
time
what? I think like most people, you put a lot of hard work into what you do to then outperform, to bring, again, what I call value to an organization or to a person or to a process that helps propel you to the next level. So that's basically what I do. That's where I see my life. I love to problem solve. So that problem solving for me brings a lot of satisfaction. So I think bringing that in a very positive way helps to socialize it in a different aspect. And so people tend to like the energy around that. And so that helps to propel and get, more and more opportunity. So that's my 30-second pitch on how I feel like I've made it from here to, I guess, here. But I'm hoping it'll keep taking me even higher than that. I don't even want to see my hand.
That's really good. So tell me, what risks did you take in your career? Which ones worked out? And which ones didn't turn out the way you thought it would when you took risks?
Absolutely. So, I mean, I think one risk I will say is when I took that proposal for my new position for which I am in today. So, I think there are times where we're in a position where we're actually successful, things are running smoothly, and we think, okay, where do we want to go? How do we want to kind of reposition ourselves? And sometimes that can be difficult. And, I try to get myself involved to learn where there is an issue, how I can help manage to make it successful and where everybody sort of wins within the process. I think that's one of the things that people like about me most is that, when we see an issue, we work on it together where we all win. Because like, if we all look good, it's all better gravy going up on the ladder together, right? And so I had seen an opportunity, even this was actually during the pandemic, where I was doing my role, a lot of things were happening, it was great, but I also saw that I was running not just the New York facilities, but the corporate office was basically under me because I started up all the property management business and it was naturally just an easy thing to do. So it was on my lap. And we had global corporate calls on just seeing how each office was doing, what the protocols were, where we found it. And my COO was a part of those calls and heading them up so that he could just be aware of like where we were on strategy and how we were managing through the process. And in that committee, I just had a lot of what I would call really great ideas in terms of how to bring the teams together. I knew who to call. I had a lot of great relationships in even those global sort of areas where I said, you know what, I can do this. And another woman on the call, she was fantastic. Her name is actually Celine Chiaviti. She is our EVP of our pensions division. She's phenomenal. She's got a great eye. I must say she's got a great eye for talent. But she says to me, hey, I think you should really propose this. Because a part of me was like, should I not? And she was the one that said, you know what? Do it. I'll talk to him about it. That's all she said to me. And I said, you know what? Okay, I'm going to put it all together. So I literally took my resume. I created a job description that I wanted to do. I wanted to do global corporate travel. I wanted to really run the initiative on leasing. I wanted to run the strategy on sustainability for our corporate offices. I wanted to perform space strategy for our future growth and really handle the contraction or expansion of our spaces. So I put it together in a job description. I pitched it to him. Granted, I was still doing my day job, right? So I felt like, and you don't ever want to say, oh, I want to do something else. But I said to my team, hey, look, I'm looking for more of a challenge. I'm looking for other things to do. I am going to try and pitch this role because I feel like it's something that might happen. Maybe it does, maybe it doesn't, or maybe I just need to change altogether. But I hope you don't mind, I'm going to pitch it. And they were fine with it. And so when I did it and I presented like everything that I wanted in the structure, I think selling that and being able to say that you're really interested in wanting to bring a different type of perspective to it was great. So lo and behold, they accepted it, which is great. So that was a great risk for me, just on taking a little bit of a leap of faith, because you never really know if what you're going to pitch is going to take off and like they're going to need it. But I tried to present it as something that, again, I think like in all things, the more you can help an individual, the more you can help an organization, that can take things off people's plates that need more time to do other things. Like that helps repel the need to have that. So at that point in time, and a lot of God's grace and luck, to be honest, because I'm a true believer in that, I think, it's right timing, positivity, a little bit of God shining down his light on me to give me the op, and like having a little bit of other female support in the background just was like the magical soup that made it all happen. So that was a great risk for me.
That's good. And I really like that you layered in the different points that kind of brought it together. It wasn't singular. I think there was a couple playing things along with the plan, which helped it come together. Like, you do oftentimes need that person in the room being like, hey, right, let me throw a name in the hat. Let me just kind of tickle that ear a little bit about this person and let me warm it up. And that really does set a tone. And oftentimes it does make an impact on how things are received. But I think the part I love the most about what you just discussed is that I seldomly see that as even spoken about strategy. Like you just go up and say, I have a whole pitch for you. I have a whole idea on my role. Most of us are believe that we're sitting in a passive role, right? We're waiting for the role to come up. Then we put our name in the hat and it feels like a waiting game. And here you were saying, I see the opportunity. I'm going to create it, and I'm going to be proactive to create what I think is a solution for both the company and for me. And it's pretty groundbreaking advice right there. I'm like,
what's interesting? It's like, I'll tell you, the committee itself, so many people did not want to be on it. And so I was like, I'll be on, like, they need somebody there, I'm going to be on it. And like, it might be that one thing that you think people don't want to be on, but it's the right audience. So I was like, oh, you know what? If my COO is going to be on there, great audience to be a part of.
Right.
So let me listen to what the gaps are, or like what he feels he's struggling with getting information. I mean, that's why they had this committee for him. Like, I can streamline this for him.
Yeah.
So and the great thing about doing that is that there's no competition.
Yeah.
Right. Because like when a role comes up, sometimes it's like been there. They have somebody already in mind because they've already worked with individuals. So when you bring it and there's no comp, it's like really, no competition, to be honest. You're the one proposing it.
I'm loving it.
Like, it's yours, right? So like, who else are they going to pick for? I took the time to do it. Now, could they have given it to somebody else? I guess they could have.
Yeah.
But at the end of the day, I think that's what most of us have to do, right?
Yeah.
We do think that it might come down the pike eventually. And sometimes it does, but it may never be in the time frame you're looking for. And I don't know, there may not always be perfect timings for things, but I think it's so important for us to take the idea that the audience that you have is important, because you want to make sure that you're putting yourself in front of the right people, because your time is valuable.
Right.
And what you can choose in terms of gaps to then create something of a picture that helps them feel like, yes, I need this.
Yeah.
What brings them a solution, right?
That's
so
good.
Like they want to find a solution to the stuff that they need to have. So like, if you take those opportunities to really listen and hone in, and that's not just job, but like my clients, when I was with JLL, same sort of deal. I could understand exactly what it is that they were upset about, needed to have some more. And that's exactly the stuff I would hit just because I knew it bothered them. And so I was like, all right, let me perfect this for them. Like, I've earned their trust. They know I can do. And then they'll like get better and easier to then let me do other things. And so I feel like if you put yourself out there a bit to take those those notations in your mind and actually be a listener to help find a solution, then there should be opportunity that opens up.
That's awesome. That's good. That's good. What do you think women offer in leadership roles that far outshine their male competition? Like what do
far
you see
outshine.
as our tour de force?
That's a great question. I would say, look, there's something about a woman's intuition that a man just doesn't have because it's a female intuition, right? And it can be a blessing and a curse.
Yeah.
And I think there are certain emotional aspects of the way we handle our job that can really touch people in a way that some men can or can't do. And even some women can't do it, right? Like it's all about personality and those traits. But I think, having a little bit of that female intuition on reading people, situations, like that sometimes can be done in a way that some men can't, right? They sort of have a thought process of what they want to go in, gunning in for certain things. I can do the same, but sort of the way I handle it can read some of the things I need to do and approach in a slightly different way. So I feel that's a little bit of the superpower that women have that can really finesse and like help to disengage what might be a heightened situation. Like we do have, I think, a certain way of being able to do that. And it's a skill. And some of us have it more than others, but just that's like any sort of talent that we all have. But I think that's a little bit of something that maybe we don't really realize can help us, but really does. So that for me, I think is just a little bit of that female intuition, a little bit of that practicalness, sensitivity, the ability to do a lot. And our ability to do a lot is great, but to do it accurately and with efficiency is something that is even a better skill set, right? And like most women can get that a bit, right? But again, it changes between the person and how they've grown themselves organically. But I feel like most of the time, and I know this is a little bit of psycho, but like most of the time, the survey that you might get from a male is like, man, I feel like my calendar's all over the place. And like, they sort of have to focus on doing a lot of things. And I am like an incredibly organized individual in some ways, in some respects, not in all respects. Like sometimes I win, sometimes I don't win on some, but like, I know exactly what I need to do for the day to be able to accomplish and to push. So that for me, I feel like a decent amount of women have the capability set of doing, because I think we always have, especially when you're a mom, so many things that you have to think about at the same time to get the kids out the door, get to work, do this, make this, come back, whip up dinner, whatever that is, right? So I think that's also one of the main things that us as women have like a really nice capability set of bringing to the table.
Yeah, that's good. And I can speak directly to my experience working with you. You are super organized when it comes to her schedule. Let me tell you, folks, like if you're on the calendar, you're on. If you're not, you are not, right? But and I, that level of integrity for scheduling, I think I've seen personally in working with you that it's part of the success inside of what you do, which I think is very cool, that I can learn from, where you're like, I really need to make sure that the integrity of my scheduling is hardcore, right? Like I mean, I've emailed you and you're like, 5 months from now, I'm booked on that day. You're like, oh, okay. Like, so if anyone was wondering, she practices what she preaches. What helped you stand out when you were moving up and being considered for more senior leadership roles?
Again, I think one of the great things was my positivity. I like to shine light. That's one of the things I think is really helps me establish myself from others. Because even in the toughest of days, when like those things happen that challenge you, you have to sort of be able to still get out of that negativity, because it happens to all of us, right? We have not so great days, but we have to always think, all right, probably always be worse. Somebody might be going through something tougher,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
And I
Yeah.
really try and bring that to my forefront. I'm like, oh man, this really sort of, wasn't going my way today. And I start to laugh because then like, I trip on something or whatever, like, and I'm like, you know what? I'm just gonna laugh today because I don't want to cry. I was gonna do it this way. But I think a lot of that just shines through, even with people I talk with, like for my colleagues on the phone, right? Like most of my conversations that I get through meetings and stuff, but my intro will always be to ask how someone is doing because I actually personally care about like how they're doing, do a little joke, do a little something to just like make it feel personal for all of us to succeed or to like that I care because I do. But that helps sort of solidify some of the relationships I have so that when I do call, people are willing to pick me up.
Yeah.
Right. So
Yeah.
I think that has definitely put me on the radar for people who want to have somebody that like they feel good about solving problems with. So I think
Yeah.
that's always helped me stand out a little bit in terms
Yeah.
of just having that positive feel good nature and whether there's a challenge or not, to see it through and to say, all right, you know what? I will say that if I give my word to someone, I will meet that word. I feel like that's incredibly important to me. So if I say to my COO, hey, look, I'm going to get this project done, come hell or high water, I'm getting that project done. I don't care what I gotta do. Because I've said to him that I have taken on the challenge and the capability set to do it. So for me, it's just a personal thing, but having that positivity and having that integrity to stand behind your word to say it's going to get done is what's most important. Because like the worst part is to think you say something and then you let somebody down because you just never follow through. Like that, I think is a deal killer. So I try to really keep to that, and I try and be as honest as possible. Like, because like when I really can't do something because there's XYZ, I try to help people understand why it is that I can't do something so that they truly understand when it might need to be another time or how I need to reschedule to help fix that problem or to assist them with something, right? Because not all conversations are great, but I try and keep myself as honest as possible to say why it is that I can't do something and keep them informed. Because I think when you don't inform somebody that it makes them feel like they're not important and not valued, but everybody's time should be valued. And I just want them to know why it is that I can't do.
That's awesome. That's really good. I really like that. All right. This one's my favorite one.
Uh-oh.
How on earth do you balance work, kids, relationships, friends, and take your career forward, right? How do you balance all of this while still moving up? Because if there's one thing I've learned, the higher up you go, the more work you're doing, right? It really is. It's more work. It's not like you just get to have martini lunches. You're doing more work. To get there involves more work. How do you balance all of this? How have you found balance to be able to have friends and marriage and kids and the whole thing? How do you do it? And travel the world.
Look, I think it's all about finding the right people that you have in your life, right? And having those that support you. Because if you have blockage, it is very difficult to move forward. Absolutely. So a little bit of my craziness, even with my calendars, like, so I'm very integrated into my family. Like everything that I do starts with, what does my kids' calendar look like first? Bam. That's the first number one, because I don't want to miss the events that I know that are going to be very important to them. So that's like my number one thing that I do. I wait for that calendar. I put it completely in. I then also put in and focus time on where we want our trips. So I will book my trips in advance to be sure my family trips are then accounted for. And then I will layer in any work travel that I need to outside of that, because I want to be sure that I'm hitting the stuff that I want to hit the markup at home. And then I focus on the work travel. And thank goodness I have the flexibility of controlling that work travel. Some people do not. I, thank goodness, do have the ability to do that. And I really try to do it in a way where I can be very efficient with my time. So when I go there, I would love to be able to visit and spend, a whole 2-week time there, but that's not happening, right? My kids expect me to be there and be right back.
Yeah.
So I try to do that as efficiently as possible, because I know it does have a burden on my husband, who is very supportive. And even when I got the job, and he was like, "Oh, this is great," and I was like, "Okay, I'm going on my global trips," and he's like, "Wait, you're going on a trip?" And I'm like, "Yeah, I don't think you read the word global on this title." And I pitched global, you know? And so it took a while for that to help too. But then I had the supportive, thank goodness, my mother-in-law is fantastic. I'm telling you, it's the whole community, right? The village. I call my dad. I'm like, "Hey, Dad, you want to spend some time with your grandkids?" Like, and they come and they help, and like there's that support system there. And then I try to find another babysitter for the other days, so you have to try and intermingle it all. It's never easy, but I find it very, and you never feel 100%, right? Because you're always in a million different places. But I do find it really rewarding when I get to honestly say to my daughter, she's like, "Well, why do you have to travel? Like, why are you leaving?" And I'm like, I say to her, I'm like, "I hope to God there's one day that you find a job and the support and the love of people that that care for you, that help you do this." And I say to her all the time, and to my son too, I leave and I come back and I say, "Thank you for your kindness and supporting me," because I know it's not easy. And I really thank the family. I think my husband, I'm like, "Look, thanks for really putting that effort forward for this week, because like I know it's not easy." And I try to show them how much I value them as a person. Now with my friends, like I love them. I'm on the plane. I'm like, "I miss you all," and then like, "Let's go out for drinks." They're like, "Okay, let's put it in there." And so like I try to do the same, pay the same homage to my husband. Like, "You should go out. I'd like a night. Like, let's try and get that on the calendar. Let's get ourselves on the calendar. We'll try and seek a babysitter for the night to try and do it, because it's so important." But I think it's all about the quality of the friendships that you have around you too, because they all understand and you just jump right back in it. And they're like, "You know what, whatever you need, they help support you along the way." So it's like, it really is about, I think, hopefully picking the right people within your circle that value you the same way you value them, and that want to see you successful. I really do think that makes the big difference.
Wow. I mean, I really just took a lot from that, because what you just painted starts in high school, it starts in college, and it starts with, how do you start choosing wisely the people who you bring around? How, and what are those factors when you're meeting somebody or you're dating someone, and you sit there and say, "Is he hot? Does he have a six-pack?" You're sitting there saying, "Hey, is this person somebody who can be supportive, can help you balance?" Because
Absolutely.
who you're going up with is going to be a big deciding factor on how high you can go.
Absolutely.
That
The rest will pull you down, right? So we already have enough friction, right? Life in general gives you friction. So like, you might as well not add to the friction, right? As much as you can.
And you sit there and say, there's some people who can give you wings, and there's some people who will be an anchor, or I said an anvil, right? And that, I don't think that we talk about that enough when it comes to being successful as women, being executive women, and how we can hone a skill like choosing great partners, choosing supportive partners, choosing great supportive friends, and choosing even marrying somebody who has a great supportive family, right? Sometimes that's not part of the equation, and that is a hindrance. And you kind of go, there's new parts of the equation that we can think about at a very young age that I'm kind of like blown away. I'm like, wow, I didn't think about that. And that's actually, wow, that was really impactful.
Right? Even with our kids, it's like, sometimes it's so easy, I think, to see them as like these little kids, and they are, but I also see them as like a real person. So like, I would want to be spoken to in a way that I feel makes me feel like I'm respected. And so when I come back and I talk to them and say, because they'll go through this whole relationship of like all the friends that they meet, but I always say the same thing. I say, you have to be happy for things that always happens for your friends. Like, that's a real friend, and they will do the same to you. But I think if they're just thankful for who you are, like, because I thank you for being a supporter of me, like that's the same stuff. So you have to sort of look for those signs. I just keep trying to drill that in. Hopefully it works. I don't know. They're still very young, but I'm going to keep trying and keep it there. But I think those are all things that we can start even from a young age to try and like build them up and help them hone in on, it's really important to have the right perspective on who can, and you the same way, vice versa, support them, support you, and like make it feel like it's a journey together, right? Because when it's always one, sometimes there's always another person that feels like they aren't really taken for the journey in their own respective manner, right? So like
Right.
sometimes that happens.
Right. That's good. I'm gonna be thinking about this for a minute, right? All right. What are some things that on the pathway up you think should be avoided? When you're trying to go up, when you're ambitious, when you want the next role, maybe you think you deserve it. What do you think what are some of the things that you think should be avoided in that process?
You know, I think what we might have to avoid is sometimes pointing the finger at other people as to why you haven't like gotten somewhere. Sometimes you really need to take an internal journey to say, if somebody hasn't given, and it could be that they're malicious about, maybe not so much all the time, but maybe there are some things that maybe your brain is saying, I don't get why this person, or oh, this person doesn't like me, or so why is that? Can you refocus what you're doing or your interaction to change some of that? I try and do that with a lot of the people that, sometimes you're not going to get along with everybody, right? There's just no way. But then I think about the ones that are a bit challenging for me. I say to myself, hey, how can I sort of change my outlook on how I approach them, or like figure out what other angle that I might feel comfortable about talking to them? Because that those are the same challenges that you're going to have with any other business leader or a tenant or a CEO, or maybe somebody doesn't see you in the same light. Sometimes we just have to focus on ourselves and say, all right, how would I approach this in a slightly different way? Again, it's just a different part of the Rubik's Cube that you're trying to figure out to problem solve.
Mm.
And sometimes I think we don't take enough of the time to say, all right, what are the other areas that I might not be as strong in, to also help complement the things that I'm very like that I'm already strong, right? So like those weaknesses, have I totally gone through some of that to help bring a different perspective, right? I try to do that quite often on the things that I am not that great at, and there's so many, right? So I got triage, which ones I want to tackle for the day. But I think you want to avoid sometimes that negativity that comes when, if I haven't gotten it yet, oh, it might not ever happen, or oh, this person is just against me. Think of a different way of looking at it, because then maybe you might see a different person, like a different opportunity to change it and like take a different trajectory. Right. So maybe you can't get through from that person, but maybe I'll get a little closer to this other one that's sort of in the same realm that can see what I'm doing to then propel me in a different direction. So I think staying open in your mindset about how it is that you want to approach a particular opportunity may have to shift, right? Like we all have to be flexible. And sometimes timing is right, sometimes it's not. But I think having some of that flexibility, because sometimes when you're so rigid on having to have something exactly at the moment that you want it, you sort of lose sight on other things around you that can actually get you there, maybe even a better way, and even in a more efficient manner. So I would say I would try to avoid some of the noise that you hear from people too, right? There's a lot of noise about like how some people have gotten successful, of other people. Like, I think you can only stay focused on the things that bring happiness to you in your heart, because like there's a lot of things that you could do to become very successful that may not make you happy in the long run. You can have a lot, and my son that says it to me all day, I'm gonna have a lot of money, and I'm like, that is great. When you do that, I am ready to retire and you buy me that home. Right? Like I'm good.
Right.
But I do think you want to avoid that negativity, that noise, and keep your mind flexible to stay open to other possibilities or other opportunities. And it may not be the exact thing that you want, but maybe if it's on the outskirts, you learn something a little different that takes you to another place. So I think that's super important to be able to do, so that you're not always so focused on one thing, right? Somebody's like, I need to be just this property manager. Okay, well, could it be for a different building that may not be a Class A building? Maybe it's a Class C building. Maybe you change around how that building financially performs. And then they see you as the performer in that. And maybe you can get into a different part of the business doing other types of strategy for the portfolio, right? It doesn't always have to be just X. So sometimes when you get those ones that may not seem as glossy or like, you know, polished diamonds, the rough ones are the ones that show sort of that execution. It shows that ability to really clean it up. And that's where I feel like people take notice. When something's already great and well run, that's awesome and everything. And again, you can still perfect it. I think sometimes when you get to transform, that's what showcases the talent and really gears like the eye to say, oh, wow, all right, so somebody can turn this around. I'll put them on something else. Let me put them here because that'll be more. All right, so again, just adding value to transformation is I think really key on making sure that you try and look at it and not be so geared to just one thing, right? Sometimes that happens to people. They're like, oh, it's below me. I don't think so. Maybe it might be for a moment, right? But if you can really transition to showcase it in a different way, then the sky's the limit after that, right? Because now you've proven other capability sets that wouldn't have been proven in the easier route.
It's really good. And I love that you're giving advice from several different layers, but in that last part, you're giving advice from someone very senior for someone who's coming up, right? You know, how can I notice you? What could highlight you to me, Michelle, who's so high up? And where could that pocket be? Because it is like when you're so low down, you know, just in the beginning, you're trying to be a property manager. How do you get the vice president of the globe to know who you are? And some of it is, you know, there was this really difficult property that had all these challenges, and this person suddenly came out of nowhere and turned it around. And that's really cool. That's a really cool extra layer of advice inside of that. I loved that.
No, it's good. Look, I had that happen to me once. There was a building, actually, it was the building that I took over and we're currently in right now, 450 Park. Something going on with the account. Nobody wanted to touch the account because they were like, hey, this client is so tough. And I was like, you know what? Nobody wants it. I'll take it. Let me go in there. I can do this. And that's exactly what I did. I turned that around. I turned the relationship around. I turned the reporting and like the structure of the group around. And again, that puts you on the map, right? Because then I said, okay, I turned out this client. I learned a ton of what I need to learn, even from an accounting standpoint. And so when they wanted to pitch on another client, I said, let me join you on the pitch. I can give them the insights of how I did managing the transition of these systems and all this stuff, and then how I worked with the clients to kind of transition the relationship. I can help get some of these clients for you. And then they let me do that too. And then that was a bunch for portfolio planning at that point, where I was trying to hone in on what the client was trying to look at. So again, the things that people sometimes want to run away from are sometimes the thing that like you can really build a sort of perception, a good perception of yourself, right? People will perceive you then because that's who you are as a transformer. Like you are transformational. You can really hit the mark when it is that they need somebody to depend on. And so I think that's what makes a big difference when you're trying to go to your next job, or you're trying to, you know, talk to your boss. It's like there's a task, and great, it can be done. But how do you make it even easier for them to do the next? How are you trying to think about the steps, maybe 3, 4, 5 steps ahead of what was given to you? Like, what's the overall, like, ask questions. And like, when you see that initiative of somebody actually wanting to help, it's like the sky's the limit from my perspective, because I feel like it's really like, I need you then, right? Because time is so limited for all of us. It's great when you have somebody that says, hey, how can I add value to you? How can I take some things off of your plate? How can I make this process easier? And so that helps to then gain the trust, right? I think we all just want to be able to trust each other to get stuff done and respect each other to like have a life, right? So like if somebody help me do that, I'm like, no problem. Love to have you on the team. It's great. So.
That was awesome. That was really, really good. How long would you tell someone they should stay in a position or role before looking to take the next step?
I would say when you feel like you're no longer challenged and you feel like you're no longer engaged, that's probably like you'll get those inklings in a while. I don't think there's a formula for, oh my gosh, after 2 years you should jump. I think if the projects and the responsibility that you're given and the new tasks that you're learning and you're just educating yourself in a new way. And look, I'm one of these people that has, thank goodness, happened to me in a lot of the positions I've had. I'm going to be with Oxford for 10 years, but like literally every single part of those 10 years was transitioning to something new that I was either, starting up the business for them or doing a ground up development for them, starting up a new business line for their corporate real estate aspect for them. Like there's always been something that's been really challenging and engaging for me where I was like, this is great. Another new challenge. When I no longer feel that way, I know for me, I will need to move on and do something else. But I'm hoping I'll be creative enough in an organization that I think really values me. And I know that Omer's and Oxford absolutely is one of those organizations for me, that I'll be creative enough again to say, hey, look, I actually think I could do this for you now. Well, make me your IT head of IT. I don't know. I'm not a great IT person, but like maybe I learn more and more about that process to help in that way. Or maybe, you know what, Bob, I would love to take your job. So when you're ready to retire, right? Like I'm here. Right?
I'm waiting. I want to see that pitch.
That's right. And so like it's great. But like I've actually had those conversations with him and said, like, what do I need to do to be that COO?
Yeah.
And he's great. He's like, well, first get some Google some books, and that's great. He's like, that's what I did first. And I was like, yeah, Google some COO books. I'm like, all right, that's good. He's the kindest man. He's fantastic. And so like, but I do believe that if you give yourself the capability to just explore opportunities, and maybe it's no longer hitting the spot with that firm that you're in, then you say to yourself, yes, let's move, but always move in a way that you've left off with leaving them with a great package that they've had. They miss you, right? Because when that next opportunity comes or when something happens that changes, they'll remember you and they want you back, right? Because life throws you all these curveballs.
Oh, does it?
And maybe the next opportunity isn't quite what you want, and they still remember what a great job you did. They'll be dying to open a position for you.
Yeah. Yeah.
So like, it's
Do
really
it right.
important to always leave doing it right and taking pride in your work where they know exactly what you exemplify, right? So when the opportunity comes for you to want to make that transition, and maybe things work out, maybe things don't, but like they're sort of wanting more. So I would say that's my feelings on when you'd want to make the change, is when you really aren't feeling engaged and challenged. And like, and by the way, engaged and challenged where you feel like you're being valued for your work, right? Because like you could be doing a million different things and maybe they aren't valuing as much, but also speak up about that, right? What would make you feel valued from them? What is it? And sometimes, they might, like we always say, we want money, but absolutely, that always helps. But like, what else is it that you want from them, or like what you'd like to participate in that will help you feel like you're more valued as an employee?
Right.
And I think once you have those honest conversations too, because sometimes we want people to think that we know what is in our brain, like we think we're exemplifying it, but maybe not. And sometimes you just need to say it in a way that's helpful and constructive, and that's positive too. Like there's different ways to bring constructive criticism and like in positive ways versus the opposite, right? So,
right, absolutely. That's really good. What do you think is a rule of thumb when it's time to start looking for your next step in your career? Is it, I think we kind of touched it. Is it knowledge? Is it time spent? Like, what do you think, is it like, when do you know? right? And I think I like what you said before, because I think this question might be redundant after that, but in case you have a different angle, because from what I took from the last one, it's when you stop being challenged, right? That's when right? And for me, it's kind of like, hey, if you learn everything there is to learn about the building, you're not really being challenged. It's 6 months later, right? Right? So, what is that sweet spot?
Yeah. Well, look, I think like when I say what like you're being challenged, it's not that somebody challenges you, but you're forcing yourself to challenge yourself also, right? Because like we could think of different ways of doing our job better. And sometimes when we think we've hit a peak, we don't have to anymore. So I think that's also something that we have to say, like, let's not get, I don't want to say the word lazy, but sometimes a little lazy that when we've achieved something, we're like, okay, can there be more to be done? But again, I think it's more about timing could be it. I feel you already know in your heart whether you're feeling passionate about something. And I feel like there's so little time to not be passionate about the things that you do because you want to spend them on other things like family and friends and your life. So why would you stay in something that brings that down? So I think you already will know just on an instinct basis, like when it is time and when it's ready to move on. So I don't necessarily think it's just time, because time is like, you could have been learning, maybe you didn't learn enough. Maybe you think you're ready to jump ship because you thought you learned it all, but there's still more to do. But I would say that intuition within will certainly give you the guidance that you need to say, all right, you know what, maybe it's not here anymore. Maybe I need to go somewhere else.
Yeah, that's good. How do you look for the next step up role without alienating or ruining your relationship with your direct supervisor? And this is a tricky one, because our industry it seems like it's big, but it's not. It's a very small industry. Everybody talks, and it can be very daunting, right? To, let's say, look for another role and you want to do it right, but it's tricky, right? Because sometimes if you start letting people know that you're looking for something else, well, then they look to replace you because they don't want to have downtime without you there. It's tricky. So when somebody is actually, okay, I'm not being challenged. I don't have, I'm ready for the next step. What's the best way to look for the next role, to look for the next opportunity, while also maintaining the integrity of the relationships around you?
Yeah, I think that
Making sure it happens in the right way.
Yeah, I think that that's all a part of how you build your relationships with your managers as well, right? I think if you have a trusting relationship between the two of you and you've gained their respect and their trust, that having an honest conversation about how you foresee your growth and what can or can't be done, not in a positive way, is something that you can come to an agreement to. So like, even when I proposed my opportunity to work with the COO to do this role, I had said to my direct boss, I was like, hey, look, I really would like to do this opportunity. There's nothing really within our group to do it. I've had enough of a relationship where, was I a little bothered that maybe they didn't put me up for like 10 other things? I said, yeah, but you know what? Then I said, all right, maybe it's not this person. Maybe I need another person. So this other opportunity, me having that built this new relationship with somebody, said, hey, look, I'm just going to take a stab at this, right? Like, I'm really trying. I want to do something. And they were like, we don't have anything, go for it. And I was like, that's great. Thank you. Right. But it was open and it was honest. And I had to give the feedback on it to say, maybe it works, maybe it doesn't work, but like, let me try. I'm still obviously going to always perform as I need to perform to make sure that everything's going to be great here. And that's exactly what I did. I was working like two different parts of the job at that point from a transitionary period, just to ensure that everybody would feel good, that there was a good plan in place for successorship. And that's also very important, right? As you're building your team, you should be building your team for successing, right? So it's when you grow and they grow with you and they feel that the operations will be as such, maybe even better, that's great, because that helps remove you from having the efforts of only staying in that position, right? So I think as you take everybody up and showcase them, so that when you have that next opportunity and say, look, I'd really like to try something else because I already have this whole hierarchy set up for you. It's done. It's like, I can do this for you. Like this is where I can go. You've already now given them the relief that they don't have to go running to get to somebody new. Right? So that's a lot of your job to make sure that the team that you have is very successful, because then you can already show them the benefit of you taking on a different role with, like, either within the company, because you're leaving them in a good place.
Yeah.
So it takes a lot of that background work of you making sure that everything is love great, so that they're feeling good about it. And then helping educate them and talk to them about what it is that you want in a way that, again, can help them. What else can I take from you? What else can I do to help benefit the organization? I see somebody else is doing this role. I'm sort of interested. Do you mind if I want to do it? Like, look, not all managers are the same. That's 100% true. Okay, like that's 100% true. I will tell you, I am one. I think the other day I was on a call with a colleague, and I was like, "What if there were two of me?" She's like, "No, don't have two of you. we love the one. We don't want two." I was like, "Okay," but I will say that I truly myself believe in the ability to teach, just educate, learn together, work as colleagues together, because a lot about leadership is, leading from the front, right? Because they need to find a path of which you take someone in the journey together. But it's also the type of leadership that you do from the side, because you need to work one-on-one with the people that you work with and respect what they're doing. And you've hired them because you believe in their professionalism and the integrity of their work. And so you lead from together side by side. Sometimes you have to lead from the back as well. Let them do the project and see how they do, to be able to kind of get themselves moving to a different direction. And like, then you can pinpoint who's got the talent in some of these things. So like there's a couple of different ways you have to lead as I think as a really great leader. And so I think if you're able to do that within your realm and do it in the right way, where it doesn't feel like it's all backhanded and stuff, like that's sort of when it starts to get a little messy. Where it's like it just goes sideways. Yeah. But if you're building the team around you to be successful, where then it helps to open up the opportunity and other people see it, it makes it a lot better and a lot easier to make the shift, where people understand why it is that you need to move.
Yeah, that's good. That's good. So, for people who I call it the stuck, right? So for people who are doing really, really well, and this applies a lot within property management. So for the women who are, they are in a great Class A building and they're running it really great. And I think about this a lot with third parties where like corporate is far off in a different land, right? And all they know is that it's not a squeaky wheel. You're running it beautifully. It's running like clockwork. And, personally, the landlords, it's in their best benefit to keep you in that role, right? Everybody really just wants to keep this person inside of that role because they want the status quo. They don't want anything to move. If it's running beautifully and you're doing a great job, nobody wants to move you, because if they do, there's an unknown. Like you could easily have someone who could do just as good, if not a better job, but there is still the unknown. And so for people who are in that kind of position, what would you give in terms of advice for them to be able to get noticed? Get noticed when everything's running like a top and technically the landscape is set, the tone is set, that nobody really who's at a higher level would want to move you because it would be a problem and then they got to deal with stuff. And, what would you suggest them to get the attention of the powers that be, to try to think about them in a leadership role, to try to think about tapping them for that director role, to try to tap the director who has really happy buildings and happy landlords for possibly a regional role? Like what can you do when the landscape in and of itself is almost preset to keep you there, because everybody, if you're doing a great job, they don't want you to move.
Yeah,
Right?
I mean, I think it goes back a little bit to helping them see the solutions that you've already brought to them for helping to release you, right? So like, if you have not really thought about successor alignment in your hierarchy and how you can make sure that that stays as a benefit to them, then I think, yes, it will be very hard. Because your team must be strong beneath you for them to feel like they can get either move up an individual, or even if they brought in a new individual, to still have it running, right? So I think that's one of the critical components. I also feel like sometimes within those roles, we may have mastered the operations side of it for some, like hey, I'm great at the operations, but have you really pushed yourself to learn more of the asset management perspective? Have you pushed yourself more to learn about the investment side of the business perspective? Have you asked to be a little bit more engaged in when they're doing a due diligence review on different buildings to help you learn more, or on the debt side? I think when you start to branch yourself out outside of just one honed in skill set, it will then give you a more sort of rounded perspective on the business in general that you might not be seeing. And this might be hard for some, even opportunities where some landlords bifurcate a lot of the business line. So they say it's only operations, accounting only does this function, leasing only does that. So it might be a little bit more difficult, but I think the more that you become friends with everybody within those divisions, and you learn how they run their process and ask questions around that, even construction. And when they're doing construction in their building, be a part of the meetings. Hey, look, just let me participate so I know what's happening on the schedule. But what you're really doing is hearing everything that's going on about the project management process, so that you know exactly what's going to happen from a capital expenditure perspective. Then talking to your accountant saying, hey, you know what, they might be processing that invoice. Let me give you a little bit of a go ahead to take from them what might look like the cash flow for this project. Like, then you're integrating yourself more and more in things that they're like, oh, wait a second, she's now doing this, doing that, has a more well-rounded way of speaking to all of these different broader divisions. You might not be the master of guru of every one of them, but gosh darn it, they won't put something past you, right? So like, I think it's taking the time to also make sure that the relationships that you're building within your organization, socializing yourself in learning from them and helping yourself understand how you add value to that portion of it through your work and your operations, helps to push you up, right? Because once you've shown them that you're not a one-trick pony, why would they ever want to keep you back? Right? Because you are now going to go and be able to sell it to another client for them, especially in a third party role. You can bring a different perspective to it. So like, I think sometimes we want to focus on the fact that we're only in one role, and sometimes that does happen but I think that's what makes it so important for you to socialize yourself and become a valued colleague to the individual in your firm, so that you can learn from them. Right? And the more you learn from them, the more that you can integrate that into the things that you do to move up. And if it doesn't happen there, then you've already learned all of the other things, that other aspects that you learn in business, to then that get that other higher level role that somebody might need somewhere else. So you don't want to segregate yourself by just saying, oh yes, I'm the best property manager at this. Like, what I used to do was I used to have my calls with my accountant, and I would learn every single thing that they would do. Why this GL? Why this process? How does it go into JD Edwards? Was I an accountant? Absolutely not. Zero. But I learned. And so like, when they had an opportunity for me to try and sell how they would transition from one accounting to another, I could do it. So it's really about trying to find the information that's going to then help sell yourself to other opportunities, right? And broaden it and be sort of like a slight subject matter expert, so that they find that value, right? So I think when we feel like we're stuck, we just need to make sure that we're trying to engage in the right way with our colleagues to learn a lot more, so that then when there's another opportunity, you're able to speak to it. They remember you because, oh yeah, you know what? She ended up doing this project for me. And that's like literally how I got to know the Oxford team. I was helping them transition the sale of the building with my former client. And so that process of everything that I could tell them from an asset management perspective to a financial perspective, how that due diligence process was going to work, they like loved it. And they said, you know what, would you come work for us? And I said, yeah, I'll come work for you. This is fun. Why not?
That's
But
awesome.
you bring that to them, right? So I
Yeah.
think that's what we have to make sure that we do, because you always want to learn, is how do you take that learning then and sell it and grow it and be good and spread that positivity of like your knowledge to then help you get to the next level.
That's good. That's really good. Oh,
Mind blown. No,
no words, no words.
oh my gosh.
So, gatekeepers. This one was one of the hottest things from the last event we did. Gatekeepers. Have you ever found yourself in a career situation where you're stuck because a gatekeeper is not allowing you the ability to move upward and outward? What did you do to find a way through? What general advice would you give to other women on how to battle a gatekeeper and win? And the reason why this came up, I had so many women come up to me and tell me, like, I'm having this right now, and they I need to know more. So talk to me about if you've ever experienced gatekeepers and what was your way through?
So gatekeeper, I think all through life you meet many different types of people that sort of might stand in your way to get to the end goal. But that's where I think I've always had a really good way of, versus just going vertically, jumping from one thing to like jumping in a way to like figure out how can I manipulate the situation to my best outcome. I think it's about reading people, reading about what's important to them, why they're sort of that personality type, what it is that puts them there, and why they try to hold back. And from there, I try to figure out, hey, can I make a connection? If I can't make a connection, who's close enough to them that has already been let in for me to make a connection to come in some other way? So sometimes you really have to figure out what's important to that person, who the people that they surround themselves with that you feel comfortable to make a connection with. And so from there, maybe they let up a little bit of the guard to then get to know you a little bit better and do something. And this may be with people, and I would only do this if it was something that I thought were people that I actually really wanted to surround myself with, because I do not like to surround myself in an environment that I think is not healthy, not going to be positive for me, or will drag me down. So in my mind, again, you may not be in the best relationships with people just straight off, but I always find a way to try and figure out, as my little buzzing bee mind, the queen bee, how to make that honey, right? So like, I really try to make sure that I think strategically about, well, if it's not this person, what other person is around them that they really like, really trust, really understand or respect, that I can then get to know, to then figure out how to make it more beneficial for me. Right? And once I learn some of that and sort of filter in what I think is still staying true to myself, because like you can only be who you are. Eventually, even when you want to try and pretend to be somebody else, the real you comes out regardless. Because like you get too comfortable and the real you comes out, right? So like there's no hiding. But you do that. You sort of try and assess your situation and say, I can beat this. I can get past this. And I typically always do somehow. It may not come in the timing that I want, right? And sometimes you think, oh, it has to be right now. Like it may not come in the timing. Maybe it takes a while to get there, but eventually I figure out a way to break through. But I think when you really have that dedication to yourself to want to make something happen, you will find a way.
Yeah. No, that's good because two things I took from that was it's look at the landscape more broadly, right? Go if this person's not is gaping, let's see, let's look at the whole network. Let's see
That's
all
right.
the players on the board. Let's expand the circle, expand the radius, and keep expanding until you find a way to work in. And I think women have an advantage in this respect because women have that web thinking, right? With this interconnected thinking. I think that's really good. That was powerful. Okay, now I'm going to turn the page to mentors. One of the things I've just learned in my journey to, learn more about how to become successful for women is the one thing that always kept coming up was mentors, right? And because inevitably it was always this person or that person threw the name in the hat, right? It's a big part of success. It's your name got thrown in the hat, and it's not by accident, right? It's through a lot of work, a lot of preparation, a lot of relationship building. But I've seen mentor come up a lot, and so I wanted to talk about that a little more deeply with you. So, I think the first question for you would be, what are some traits that a mentor looks for in someone that would have them put them under their wing? Right? What are the traits that really stand out as someone, as a leader? You're pressed for time. You've got kids, you've got significant others, you've got friends, you've got demands. You're going around the globe. What would trigger you? What are the traits that they would exhibit that would have you go, wow, I want to take this person under my wing. I want to help them. I want to help them get to succeed.
So look, I think sometimes we go for a lot of people, we're drawn to a lot of people that are sometimes like ourselves in some ways.
Mhm.
So I really adapt to a lot of people who take initiative, have common sense, who are positive, good people, right? They're kind-hearted. They really feel like they want to make a difference and are passionate about the things that they do. And look, in this business, I'm not curing cancer, right? But you are either bringing an experience as from a landlord perspective or from a tenant perspective, from the employee to the cleaning individual to the CEO. Like there is an experience that you are building of amongst the humanity that you're around. And like the great part is it's like a massive gamut of people that you get to touch and influence, right? And I think when people sort of show that same passion for that, I tend to draw a lot towards it. And I say, you know what, this is a great investment of my time.
Mm.
And when they put in the effort to want to help support me, I 100% put in the same effort to support them, right? Now, if somebody's disinterested in doing something, I don't have time. Absolutely. It's like, and people are like, oh, why wouldn't you do something? Well, because like you as a person must show that you want and want to be of value to someone else, right? When you don't do that, why would anybody want to use such little time that they have to like do it, and then maybe not even get the form of respect back to say like that appreciates that, right? So I think if you're appreciative of one another and respectful of that, I think that also brings a massive dynamic change for me. And like the individuals that I work with, honestly, have been awesome. And I've seen the trajectory of such wonderful women that I've worked with. And it's so gratifying because it's not from me, a little thing that I did, like working with them and having a great time. And, just having fun in what we do made all the difference. And I loved that. I love that I get to see how fabulous they are in their roles today. And so like, it really makes me excited. So when I get to see somebody that's like, yes, I want to do more, I'm like, let's get into this. I can't wait because it's so wonderful to see. And maybe one day when I have all this gray hair that totally comes out and I need a job, they will remember me to like, I don't know, carry their bag or let them write me something, whatever. I'm trying like in the long run, maybe they'll remember me a little bit to give me an opportunity when it might get tough for me, right? Because like you never know what the world and what life brings you. So I think if we all spread some of that positivity in the way that we engage with one another and mentor one another and respect one another, And look, everyone that I've mentored, or I say mentored, but I feel like, yes, you're teaching, but I feel like, again, it's a side-by-side colleague. I never say someone's X or Y. I always say my colleague, right? Because like I see myself as the same level regardless. So because they're helping to support me, that's a massive, massive, so like capability set to help me live a dream and a life that I'm looking to live. So I see you exactly eye to eye in the same light. So whether there is somebody that's like, oh, it's an assistant or something like this, like I don't use any of those titles. I'm just like, yeah, my colleague so and so. They wouldn't know whether she's an assistant or somebody else or like the CEO. You would never know, because I try to really emphasize the fact that it doesn't matter where you are in sort of the hierarchy or the chain of command of things. If they're bringing something to the table for which they can support the operations, support the way we run an investment, they're absolutely shoulder to shoulder with you, going at it 100%. So like, I try to not mentor per se, but I guess I do a little bit of that. But like, I would say I try to bring as much respect to learning from one another, because I will always say that for those that I respect truly, I will say, so what do you think? Can you like give me some, what do you, how I wrote this sort of thing up. What do you think can be tweaked? Do you think I'm missing something? Is there something I'm missing about the way I'm running the team? Is there something that I'm not hitting the mark on? Because I would like to be better for you too. So I do ask those questions to be sure that I try to bring value to them and make them feel respected as a colleague of mine.
That's good. That's good. We are nearing the end of this incredible interview.
Oh man, the end.
This is the last of this season, right? Of this season. Don't worry, I'll rope you into some more of this.
Okay.
Don't you
I'm giving all my jewels of wealth here.
And we're gonna finish with this, which is, what are some good characteristics a mentee should have, should be looking for in a mentor-mentee relationship? So if I'm looking for a mentor, what are the things that I should be looking for, right? What are some triggers that say this would be a good person? What should they be looking for? Just like we touched on when you're looking for a good life partner, what are some things to look when it comes to a good mentor? What are some things that you think someone can have a hit list on this would be a good candidate?
Yeah, I mean, I think when you're looking for a mentor, I think you want to find someone who's going to value you. Because as you showcase effort and they acknowledge, I think that acknowledgement of what you're doing, giving you that feedback is really important, because being able to constructively speak about how you want your journey to be is going to be like a way for you to then get insight. Because like sometimes it's hard to hear when you think you're not doing something well.
What?
Yeah, I know. You're like, oh my gosh, I'm so
You're
perfect.
kidding me.
But taking on the ability to like accept some of the feedback that somebody's giving you is super important. And somebody being honest enough to give you some of that feedback, I think, is really important to think about, right? Because some people may let you do a million things and then they don't tell you to the very end that they can't stand something that's going on. And like, you don't want that type of person. You want somebody that you feel has honesty and integrity and that can give you the right feedback, so that as you're on your journey, they'll be honest with you about maybe just some of the things that they see, and your openness to do that will make that a constructive sort of relationship. And I think to be engaged in wanting to maintain that relationship is really important, right? Because like doing the one-off, oh my gosh, I just need you for this, and then like screwing off is not great. Like you sort of want to still maintain, and granted, the calendars get crazy and it's hard to do it all the time, but like still just dropping a line after you've had a mentee, let's say, like, or like a mentor that's come and saying, hey, look, just checking in, seeing how the kids are doing, seeing how you're doing. Did you see that game? Just to keep that relationship and keep it top of mind is always important too. So I think if you put that effort and they're writing you back to do that, that's also something, right? Because then they're saying that they want to be a part of your journey too. So there are some people that do that extremely well that I know in the industry. I mean, like I've had the luck and really just the privilege of being able to work with, and they were fantastic. And that just helped me learn how to be the type of leader that I also wanted to be, right? Because that example was so great. I was like, you know what? I'm gonna add my own spin to it, but I really liked what I saw there, and I try and take that and mold it too. So I think if you see somebody that you're like, wow, I really love the way they do this certain thing, and they makes you feel good, try and nab them as much as you can, and show them how you respect them or add value to them, so that they can keep that relationship up, and so that you know it's a good connection.
That's good. And I think one of the things that we're doing this, so we're doing these interviews, we're trying to get this information. And one of the things that I feel inside of this space is when it comes to a good mentor, it's to have someone who is available to show up, right? Showing up, getting on the calls, having the lunch, having the coffee, someone who shows up who in some way, shape, or form, right? And I say this because you are here, Michelle. Like, you're here and you're showing up. And I have seen you show up on many occasions for me and for the women of our industry. And I want to thank you. I want to thank you for showing up and for
Thank
sharing
you.
it, because this time, I know this is covetous time for you. And that's the number one thing I would tell everybody: look for people who are willing to show up, who are willing to send the email back, who are willing to have the coffee. And it will not be easy. Michelle knows, I know, it is not easy to nail down someone who has like a world of experience, because the world is pulling them. But as you can see from this last hour and a half, it is well worth the investment from the mentee level to pursue, to woo, to make it work for these incredible women. And so I just want to say thank you. And this has been a great interview. Thank you for everything that you shared. Thank you for all the time that you've invested in not just this, but in so many of the other things that we're doing for women in our industry. So from the bottom of my heart, thank you. I appreciate
Thank
it.
you, Alicia. And you know what? I really have to say, I'm very proud of the efforts that you're doing to make this happen, right? Because I mean, you're taking the steps, you're taking the initiatives to bring this to our world, which I think is a really tough thing to do. And especially when there's so much that you have in your own life and in your own work style, like you're like, hey, I'm gonna do this podcast and bring this out. It's like that sounds a lot about just your sense of humanity, of who we are connected as women in this field. And I think that's just such a wonderful thing. So I say thank you for bringing that kindness to us all and taking on this project to helping others out, because it's not easy to do. It's not at all to find the time, and here you are doing it. So kudos to you, Lovey, to bringing it to the table and
Thank
making it
you.
happen. So I hope I've made all of you proud. You, all the ladies, my mom up in heaven. But I think I do agree that the more that we can help each other in the process of it, the better we can be successful in finding, not just in the career, but just in our personal lives and in our heart. Because I think that's what matters number one out of everything. Because it is great to say you've had X career, but at the end of the day, the thing that stays with you is basically the family and the friends that are around you. And so if you can make that happen, it's fantastic.
Yeah, I agree. I can't agree more.
Awesome, my
All
dear.
right.
Have a wonderful rest of your day.
You too. I will let you
Thanks,
get back
buddy.
to
Sounds
running
good.
running a global portfolio.
There you go. Here I go. I'm off again. I'll talk to you later.
All right.
Bye.
Bye.